So I joined the army in 2000. I went straight into the parachute regiment after completing a year at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. Just after that was when the Twin Towers occurred. So it was looking to sort of join an army that were really focused on sort of peace support operations in the Balkans. And then clearly after that event, we were taken in a very, very different direction. So my early career with the parachute regiment was actually deploying out to Iraq a couple of times, and then out to Afghanistan as well. I think I deployed there twice as well. In the mix of that, I did a couple of tours of Northern Ireland, and I spent a bit of time down in the Falklands as well. So it was a fairly busy period for sort of the first 5 or 6 years of my military career. And I eventually ended up serving just short of 18 years and then decided to go and do something else instead. I mean, I still have a real fondness for, the time that I spent in the military. And, I made some amazing friends and some fantastic connections that will stay with me throughout my entire life. And really, one of the reasons that I do go and attend is to sort of pay my respects to those that served, and we're not as fortunate as me that I sort of emerged from that period of my life relatively unscathed. And I lost soldiers in operations, and I feel it important to mark the fact that some of those young lads did give their life. The first time we were deployed to Iraq, we were based in an area called the Maysan province that bordered onto Iran, and it's sort of on the southeastern corner of Iraq. And there was a young lad called Andrew Kelly, who was, he was one of my soldiers. I was a platoon commander at the time, and I was in charge of 32 people. I was 23 years of age, and we were out patrolling, as you do, just trying to sort of secure the area. And at the time, we didn't realise what we were actually seeing was the beginning of the insurgency that then went on for the next 10 years or so. Andrew, unfortunately, was shot, and he died of his injuries. He had only turned 18 just before we left the UK, and so he wasn't in theory he wasn't going to be there, but he turned 18, and therefore he was able to sort of come with us, and that day will stay with me for a long time. Just that the sounds, the activity that was going on at the time, and unfortunately the injury that he suffered, he was never going to survive. And it was the impact that it had on us as a team, because that was the first fatality that we had suffered as a unit in Iraq. And it was also the impact of sort of trying to lead a team through that. And they were clearly dealing with sort of the family, his mum and dad, when we got home from Iraq, which was a very sort of humbling experience to see how the families actually sort of deal with the loss and the part that we could play in that. And that's one of the things that over the years I've lost touch with the family, which is one of the biggest regrets that I do have about that. But that was a very difficult time for not only myself, but also the small team that Andrew was part of. And yeah, that's something that will stay with me forever. I've seen the impact that the loss has on the families as well, and I genuinely believe that it is much harder for the families than it is for those who are deployed away on operations, because the strange thing about warfare is that it's 90% boredom, and then it's 10%, utter horror and fear, and we know when we're safe and we know when we're not, and we're putting ourselves in harm's way, whereas everybody back here just assumes that we are in harm's way the whole time, and they must be just sort of living on their nerves for the whole time that people are away. So that plays on my mind. It's, and I really think, that the family and even with like my wife Helen, she knew what I did, and I've deployed since we've been married, and I just really think how hard it is for the people that are left behind while this happens.